Thank you for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed Tanner Boyle's 1976 highlight reel. Quite the character, Tanner Boyle, and I will be talking about what makes him special later in this video. But Tanner is just one of the many reasons that The Bad News Bears is my favorite baseball movie of all time, and that's coming from someone who loves The Sandlot and watched it endlessly as a kid. I also love Moneyball as well, but I'm not sure it belongs firmly in the baseball movie category. Now, if you've ever seen The Bad News Bears, you know that a film like it could never be produced in modern Hollywood for many reasons. The political barriers are the most obvious, but there are also financial and artistic reasons why The Bad News Bears script would be immediately dismissed by modern Hollywood studios, and it's all the reasons why they'd ignore it that actually make it special. The best place to begin is with the characters of the story. So there are a lot of characters in The Bad News Bears, and even though many of these characters have very limited screen time, they almost all get memorable moments, and you feel like you know them a lot better than you probably should. The efficiency can be seen from the very first shot of the film. Buttermaker rolls into the parking lot in a convertible Cadillac that is creaking, and it just looks like it's on the verge of death, and its owner is in not much better condition. Buttermaker is an alcoholic, a smoker, he doesn't have much energy, and before he even says a line, you understand the basics of who he is. A lot of films don't even get that far with their characters. When Buttermaker begins managing the Bears, he's doing it purely for the money, and he uses this reality as a way to deflect the shame of his team getting annihilated early on. All the other managers, they're working for pride, because this league is big in their community, they want to be seen as winners. And that's a key theme in this film, the way parents attach their pride to seemingly innocuous games. And once the Bears begin to taste success, Buttermaker is dragged into the same trap. Now, the introduction to all the boys is amazing. It's chaotic. You hardly even know what's going on or being said. But once again, it's very efficient. By the end of the scene, you already know the spirit of all the players. And the way Buttermaker just brushes off the craziness of his players, it's a thing of beauty.
He never heard no Buttermaker who ever played for the Yankees. Let alone pitch to no hitter.
All right, I don't know who the hell you are, but sit down and shut up.
Can I play second or third base?
You can play second or third,
Thank
whatever
you.
you want.
Even after Engelberg cracks his windshield and Tanner tries to fight him, which is probably my favorite Tanner offensive of the entire movie, even after all of that, Buttermaker moves on because he knows that they're just stupid kids, and it doesn't take long for a bond to be formed between him and his players. And I think a big part of that is how they see the former baseball player side of him, not the drunk who cleans pools side of him. It's clear that Buttermaker takes a lot of pride in his former career, especially given the fact that he embellishes it to make it even more impressive to the kids. And I love the scene where all the kids are surrounding Buttermaker and they ask him about his showdown with Ted Williams, and without hesitation, Buttermaker goes back into the story like he's been waiting to answer it. But later in the day, the kids see what the myth has truly turned into. Opening day begins the rivalry with the Yankees, and it's a really well-directed scene. With each crack of the bat, you can just feel Buttermaker's embarrassment, and Roy Turner contrasts Buttermaker perfectly. He's well put together, he has the hot wife, the star athlete for his son, and Vic Morrow gives an excellent supporting performance. I'm not sure if you guys knew this, but tragically, Morrow and two child actors would die 6 years later in a special effects accident. Really sad. If you look at the details, pretty shocking stuff. Now, in response to the beatdown, Buttermaker tells his team that it's just a game, but he knows the feeling of losing badly, and although his words to the team aren't that effective, his scene with Ahmad is really touching. Buttermaker handles it a lot better than you'd expect he would, and he gives Ahmad an ideal to shoot for, the quick outfielder that beats teams with his speed. And it's smart because it's actually the truth. Ahmad knows he isn't a good player yet, but he knows he's fast, and that truth sparks something in him, and the line delivery by Walter Matthau is top-notch.
I am kind of fast, huh?
You're very fast.
It actually takes 30 minutes for Amanda to enter the film, and she elevates it to a new level. Tatum O'Neal and Matthau have wonderful chemistry, and it's the relationship between Buttermaker and Amanda that makes the film into something more than just a good time at the movie theater. We get a little exposition dump from Buttermaker, and we learn about the things he and Amanda used to do together and how he left Amanda's mother, which she's still pretty pissed about, understandably. And during this conversation, Buttermaker says, "I'm just not the marrying type." So he's not a man who likes to feel responsible for people or maintaining relationships. And that's a big reason why he tries to avoid spending too much time with Amanda later in the movie. Now, one of my favorite moments of the entire film comes when Buttermaker returns to the field and finds out that his boys have decided to quit. They describe how they've been picked on all week at school, and they just don't want to keep on going. But Tanner stays silent, even though he looks the worst of everyone.
You want to quit, Tanner?
God, no, I want to play ball.
It's hard not to admire someone who doesn't want to quit, someone who will go down fighting no matter what. Even at the end of the film, the Bears are down 4 runs in the last inning, and Tanner is the only one who isn't discouraged. And that's what makes him a great character. He's a hothead with a Napoleon complex, he'll bully kids like Lupus, but he'll also go to war for his teammates, and he'll always go down swinging. Really awesome writing. So the Bears decide to fight on, or at least Buttermaker does, and in their next game, they hit 17 foul balls, which is a pretty big improvement, you know? You got to compare yourself to who you were yesterday, and they actually do that. And how do they plan to celebrate their 17 foul balls? Cokes and hot dogs. If that's not pure America, I don't know what is. Buttermaker realizes their pitching staff kind of limits their ceiling quite a bit, so he goes back to Amanda, and the way he manipulates her is incredible. She tells him she's growing up and she's moved past baseball, but he knows her. He knows she takes pride in her ability as a pitcher, and her reaction when he says, "You probably wouldn't have helped us anyways," it's just perfect. You can see all the thoughts firing through her mind at once, her instant desire to prove him wrong. You get all of that in just a couple of seconds. And it's impossible not to enjoy the dialogue between Buttermaker and Amanda in the next scene. It's funny and it feels real. It actually feels like two people who know the intricacies of each other are communicating. And I can't tell you how many movies try to replicate dialogue like this, and most of them fail terribly. But when it works, I mean, I could have listened to their banter for another 5 minutes. It's that fun.
9 ballet
I want the
lessons.
imported kind of jeans.
Jeans?
Yes.
What are you talking
French
about? I'm not
jeans.
getting you any jeans. You know how many pools I gotta clean to get you a
Expensive
pair of
kind.
imported jeans? What's the matter with American jeans?
I don't like them.
What do you think you are, a catfish hunter?
Amanda makes the team competitive, and her face when she strikes out the first batter, O'Neill puts the perfect amount of arrogance in there. I love it. But they need a hitter, so they try to recruit Kelly, and he's another great character as well because I think there's some deeper aspects about him. Amanda asks him why he hangs out by the field all the time if he doesn't like baseball, and he says, "Well, there's some good ass around there." And that's a predictable response given the circumstance, but I actually think he's lying. I think he had been waiting around for someone to ask him to play baseball, because for as independent and renegade as he is, Kelly fits into the team really well. He tries to be a good teammate. He feels bad when he catches all the fly balls after Buttermaker tells him to. Both him and Amanda, they flirt with the idea of being grown up, but you can see their more childlike qualities shine through at times. Amanda's desire to spend time with Buttermaker instead of being free from adults is probably the best example of this inner child-teenage conflict. And on a side note, this film does some really unique things artistically that you wouldn't expect it to even consider attempting. In a second, I'll talk about a scene that's almost 40 seconds of pure silence, but even visually, take a look at this shot right here. This is from the scene where Tanner stands up for Lupus. It's another great Tanner moment. But this shot of Lupus, that's one hell of an image. You know, the innocence, the fragility, it's very powerful. And they even conclude the scene with a close-up of Tanner, and you can see him regret all of the mean things he's ever done to Lupus. Very, very unusual tonal shifts in this film. Now, once the Bears start to win some games behind Kelly and Amanda, we see a change take place in Buttermaker. He recognizes that his team has the potential to beat Roy Turner, the guy who has been giving him shit all season long, and as I mentioned earlier, he begins attaching his pride to the numbers on the scoreboard. He doesn't attach it to the team's chemistry or how the kids are improving as individuals. He attaches it to winning, and it almost tears the team apart. The most brutal example of this change comes in a scene with Amanda where she's desperately trying to have a connection with him. She wants to have the father-daughter relationship that they used to have, but Buttermaker is more concerned with keeping her arm fresh. It's a great way to set up the dialogue. And in regards to acting, you hear people say a lot that was such a subtle performance, and usually I think people sort of go over the top with praising subtlety, but listen to how Matthau delivers this line.
Wife and kids again?
I don't have a wife and kids.
Neither do I, but I got my pools to clean. You got your maps to sell and your ballet to learn.
I could help you with your pools.
Will you cut it out, Amanda?
No, it wouldn't be like you taking me anywhere. It'd be like work.
There's so much in that sentence, and the subtlety is actually important. It's self-evident to Buttermaker that she should not be spending time with him. And to be fair, he has problems, but he isn't a bad man, and he does treat Amanda very well for the most part. So it's hard to see him very harshly dismiss her like he does, especially with shots like this. It's the eyes, the window to the soul. And I love how the director emphasizes the eyes a lot in this movie, especially in dramatic moments. But it isn't the scene with Amanda that finally wakes Buttermaker up to his destructive pursuit of winning. He's finally woken up after Rudy disobeys his command to lean into a pitch, and Buttermaker shoves him into the corner of the dugout, and we get this unbelievable scene.
What's the matter with you? All season long you've been laughed at, crapped on. Now you got a chance to spit it back in their faces, and what do? You're out there like a bunch of dead fish, not listening, bonehead plays, mistakes. Honey, don't you want to beat those bastards?
After Buttermaker chews them out, we get 40 seconds of nothing but silence and close-ups. And once again, it's the eyes. And it's so amazing to see creative decisions like this, because guys, you don't see it anymore. Films that defy the cliches of their genre and try to go a little deeper, they're such a rare thing. And it's this scene that made me want to make a video on the Bad News Bears, because it really is something special. And of course, Buttermaker sees Roy Turner slap his own kid on the mound, and that's another scene that uses silence extremely well. And he recognizes how toxic this league has become, so he puts in all of the bench riders. And I love how he tells Lupus, "You didn't come into this life to sit on the dugout bench, did you?" That's a great line, applicable to everyone. And my personal favorite moment when all these kids were put into the game is when Miguel draws a walk because he's so tiny. Just the look on his face. That is nightmare material for the pitcher. It was probably etched in his mind for weeks. And that one face probably made me laugh harder than the entirety of most comedy films released in the past few years. The Bears fall a little bit short in the final game, but we still get one of the best endings in cinema history. First, we get a touching little moment between Buttermaker and Amanda.
Buttermaker. Maybe next spring you teach me how to hit.
You bet, Lizzie.
It's just one question and one answer, but it concludes their story perfectly. And then the celebration. I mean, what can you say? Only in America could such a story take place, so it's fitting that the story ends with the American flag. And guys, enjoy it while you can, because sadly there is no guarantee that a film like this will even be allowed to be seen in the future, and another film like it will never again be made. That is the Bad News Bears. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more from me, subscribe on your way out. And I also have a whole playlist here of other films you may be interested in hearing my take on. But thank you so much for stopping by once again. Have a fantastic rest of your day. I will talk to you soon.